the first page of the test is all probability problems, and a lot of them are either NPR, NCR, or basic multiplication rule. And so you have to remember that in permutation problems, order matters, like who comes in first, second, and third place in a race. And in combination problems, order doesn't matter. Like if 3 people get to go pick a prize out of the prize bin, it doesn't really matter. They're all reaching their hand in and grabbing a prize. So the difficulty for some of you on this portion of the test is that, number one, you have to memorize the formulas. And the first 2 questions in the test are actually copy down the permutation formula, copy down the combination formula. So there you go. If you can just do that, that's 1/25 or 4% of your test score. After that, you're going to have to answer questions using permutations and combinations. Like, let's say my question had 10 choose 2, which can also be written as, actually let's make this smaller. This can also be written as 10C2. So if I'm working this out, I have 10 factorial on top, which is 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. On the bottom, I have 2 factorial, which is 2 times 1, over 8 factorial, which is 8 times 7 times ... And there's your ... up here. So now when you start canceling, what happens is that 8 factorial cancels everything below 8 in this problem. And so I end up with 90 divided by 2, which is equal to 45. If you haven't practiced combinations and permutations without a calculator, you need to go through and do some of those problems, especially knowing things like 6 choose 0 can only happen in one way, but 6 choose 1 can happen in 6 ways. That'll make the test go faster for you. Some other basics of probability are that if you have an OR question, that OR means add, but if you have an AND question, AND means multiply. And there's a question very similar to the marble questions on the review sheet, so really your best review is just doing the review sheet for the test. So on the probability section, you're also going to have binomial probabilities. So let's say that that Jake has an 80% chance of making a free throw. And what's the probability that he makes exactly 8 of 10 shots? Now you would think that on average, 8 out of 10 shots, he get that most of the time, but sometimes he's going to have a better night and he's going to get all 10. Sometimes he's going to have a worse night. And so we need to think about how many ways this can happen. This can happen in 10 choose 8 different ways. And he makes 80% of the shots, and he makes 8 of them. And he misses 20% of the shots, and in this scenario, he only misses 2 of them. And you need to be able to work this out on your calculator. The binomial questions like this are on the calculator portion of the test. There's a problem on the test that involves a Venn diagram, chart, or tree. So let's make up a scenario where we're looking at, let's say I had eggs for breakfast, or I had no eggs. And let's say I had toast for breakfast, or I had no toast. This is my breakfast in the morning. So let's say I collected some data on the last several days I was eating, and I had 100 days, and on probably 90 of those 100 days, I had eggs. And probably I had eggs with toast on about 30 of those days. So once you have a little bit of information, you should be able to fill out the rest of the information. Like let's say this is 60, because they have to add up. And this is 10, because they have to add up. And I would need a little more information, like no eggs and no toast. Like probably in the last 100 days, there's only been like 2 days where I've had cereal for breakfast. And so that would be 8, and so this would be 38, and this would be 62. Once you fill out the chart, you need to be really careful about the type of question that's asked. So here are 2 types of question. What's the probability Mrs. Auld had no toast or eggs? Now, it doesn't give me any separate subgroup, so in this question, it's really talking about all 100 days. And out of those 100 days, there was only 2 out of the 100 days where I had no toast or eggs. In the second question, it says, what's the probability Mrs. Auld had toast on a day she cooked eggs for breakfast? So we're talking about a new total right here. We're not talking about every day I had breakfast. We're only talking about the days I had eggs. So the new total right here is this number, 90. So now what's the probability I had toast on a day I cooked eggs? 30 out of 90. That's equal to 33%. So these questions, you have to read them really carefully and try to decide, is the total out of all 100%, or is there a different total because you're looking at only one of the columns or only one of the rows? There are 2 questions on the test on binomial expansion, and in my experience, most students who have trouble with the binomial expansion have trouble with the idea of substitution and doing it correctly with negative and positive numbers. So let me just do a small version, and this would be the 3rd power row, so I would be looking at 1, 4, 4, 1. So the idea is the 1, 4, 4, and 1 are the coefficients. But then you have to fill in that this is going to be a cubed, this is going to be a squared b, this is going to be ab squared, and this is going to be b cubed. And so when I'm talking about substitution, I'm really looking at like this problem right here. The leading coefficient is 4, but I have to take 3x and square it, and I have to take -2, and it's not to any power. And when I deal with the coefficients, this is going to be 4 times 9 times 2. 36 times 2 is -72. But when I look at like substitution for this one, in this case, -2 stands for b. And so when I take -2 and I cube it, that's going to be -8. For this first one, I'm taking 3x and substituting it in for a. 3 cubed is 27, so that's 27x cubed. And then for this last one, I'm taking 4 times 3x times -2 squared. That's 4 times 3, which is 12, times 4, which is 48, and it's a positive 48. But what I really want you to pay attention to is I put the 3x in parentheses, and so the 3 got cubed and the x got cubed. This is 27. Most of you who are making mistakes on a binomial expansion aren't taking the numbers when you substitute them to the right power. Okay, so bottom line is you have to know all the formulas for the test. I know it's a lot, but if you don't memorize this page of formulas, you missed one question, and that's equal to 4% of your test score. So, you want an A? There you go, 4% sitting right in front of you. Now if you make a mistake, raise your hand. I'll check this problem while you're taking the test, and if you have one of the formulas wrong, you'll still miss the point, but I'll fix it for you so at least you won't miss the questions that use those formulas later on in the test. 10 of the 25 questions on the test, that's 40% of your test score, is on sequences and series. Now, if you check online, I'm going to take my solution key for the quiz, and I'm going to put it up on my website. And if you can do everything on the quiz, then you know everything that you need to know about sequences and series for the test. If you're not solid on what's on the quiz, then go back and take a look at section 9.4 and 9.5 to review for this part of the test.
Bye. I can't stay the night tonight. Okay. The only reason I can't is because we have to share off my grandma's deck with the starting clock. But after that, yeah. I just have to do that. And then, because my grades are